Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and in this episode, we're going to talk about FU money and why niche sites, why affiliate sites, and content sites in general might be a great path for that, and the financial independence aspect. I have a wonderful guest joining me for today, my friend Mark Mars from Niche Website Builders. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Doug. Yeah, thanks for having me back on. Yeah, how are you?
Doing awesome today. And it's been a little while since we've talked, and you've been on the show several times, and people should check those out. But for the people that don't know you at all, can you give just, brief background on what you did before Niche Website Builders, how you got into affiliate marketing, and what you're doing right now? And you don't have to give a 10-minute answer, just so people get an idea of your background.
Yeah. Whistle Stop is, yes, I guess I used to work in the corporate world. I worked at Microsoft for about a decade as an application development consultant. Whilst I was at Microsoft, I created a bit of software with a couple of friends. We built a business from that, which was for online testing, which was around 2005. There wasn't many of that going around. We built that business up and sold that, having got some investment from angel investors. I started an agency, a digital marketing agency about the same time for local businesses. Did that for about 7 years, exited that business, and was working as an SEO consultant at the same time as building up my website portfolio in the website investing space. And then came across Adam, my now co-founder of the business that I currently work in, which is Niche Website Builders, where we do exactly that. We help people find financial freedom through building content sites.
And when did you get into content sites and affiliate marketing?
So I've been doing SEO for like 16, 17 years now, but for my own purposes, quite new, really. I mean, in relative terms, so probably like 4 years or so, I've been into doing it for myself, and came to the realization, like I think everyone does at some point, going, hell, why I've been doing this for other people, and like, it's just the blog space. You do it for businesses and you've got your own business, but then you find out that the blogging space and how you can make money from that. And you're like, well, shit, I've got all of the skills for this. Like, why? Yeah, I should just do this. And it's a real thing. And about 4 years ago, I'd say.
Okay, fantastic. And we're going to talk about FU money and financial independence. And for me, it wasn't, really on the horizon so much. And I didn't really think about fuck you money at all. And we're going to kind of talk about how each of us defines that. But then the financial independence piece, I really didn't think about too much, but I remember I listened to a Tim Ferriss podcast. I think it was 2017, and Mr. Money Mustache was on there, Pete Adeney. I always say his last name wrong. Pete, and I actually live in the same town as him now, and he's a friend of mine, which is, crazy. It's a very small world out there. But, Pete retired when he was 30, and he just, didn't realize that everyone didn't just retire when they had enough money. So it's kind of crazy, the little subcultures that are out there, because now I know a bunch of people that are retired and they're in their mid 30s or, mid 40s, but essentially retiring 15, 20 years ahead of their peers, which is kind of crazy, because I just thought, hey, I'll just keep working until I'm, maybe 60, and I'll retire early at the age of 60, maybe 59, and had no concept of what I needed or what FU money was. So for you, Mark, did you have an idea of FU money? And you obviously, based on your little bio there, you worked for yourself for a little while, and you were in the startup space and kind of got out of the corporate chains there for a bit. So talk about FU money and what it means to you.
Yeah, I think I've almost got, I think there's like, there's FU money and there's like financial freedom kind of money, and like two steps, aren't they? And I think I've always missed out the fuck you money step and was always wanted the financial freedom step. Like, I think that for me, they're very close together. But it's funny, actually, when I first started working at Microsoft, I remember seeing the financial advisor there, because, you get stocks, you get shares, you get you get a chance to put some money away into a pension like every month, and you kind of choose how much you want to pay in. And I went to the financial advisor and I said to him, look, I want to retire like when I'm 45, 50. Like, I don't want to be working till I'm 60. And this was like when I was really young. Like, so I already kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. And I remember he just laughed at me. He just like, I was like, no, seriously, like what, how much money do I have to put into my pension or like, whatever. Like I was naive, at that age. Like, what do I just need to put in? To like, I just want to retire at that age. What's it going to take? And he just laughed. And I said to him, look, just send me the numbers. If it's ridiculous, if I have to put 50% of my salary away, like maybe I'll try and find a way to do it. Maybe it's ridiculous, but can you send me the numbers? And he never did. He just thought it was an hilarious concept of like me trying to retire at that age. So, I worked for a decade at Microsoft and I kind of put some money away in a pension and stuff, but I guess I realized that it was never going to never make it. But in terms of FU money, I guess like the FU money is the way that I think about it is like, I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I can work my own time and I can make a monthly income that same income I could make from a 9 to 5 job. So it means I don't have to have a boss. I'm my own boss and that's the money I earn. Whereas financial freedom is kind of, I don't really have to work. That's like, I work for fun. I work I don't think I'll ever stop working, but I'll just I'll do it what I want to do because I enjoy it. And if I ever stop enjoying it, I'll stop doing it type thing.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the next step. So I've got enough money to live the rest of my life comfortably, look after my family, look after their futures. And that's for me, that's like financial freedom, like the next level up. But
perfect.
I don't know if that's the same view as you have.
Well, for the FU money, I kind of view it as, specifically being able to tell your boss, F you, like I'm out of here. And I have a quick, very recent story. A friend of mine, she wanted to work 4 days a week. She's had that schedule before. She really enjoyed it. And she was working 5 days a week for the last couple of years. And it had been rough for the last, say, quarter. So she just emailed her boss and said, I want to go to 4 days a week. It's really important to me. Let me know what to do. It wasn't, I would like to do this, or I request, or I'm asking for it. It was, here's my demand. I'm going to go to 4 days a week. And I, checked over the email. It's a friend of mine. So I checked over the email and I was like, your boss is probably going to want to talk to you and you have to be prepared to quit. So are you ready to quit if they say no? She was like, yeah, I'm ready to quit. So I think that's a very specific example. It could be a little different for everyone, but you make a demand and you're like willing to walk away from the job. It doesn't mean, you won't ever work again. It just means you can tell your boss, fuck you. And for some people, it's like a 6-month salary, like emergency fund sort of thing.
Yeah.
For some people, maybe it's like 2 years of, enough cash to live without having to work at all, cover your expenses and all that. For the financial freedom, financial independence, I lean on what's called the 4% rule. And basically you take your annual expenses and you multiply it by 25. So you have 25 years of expenses in an index fund, typically a stock market, like total market index fund. There's a few of them out there. And based on several studies, essentially you could withdraw 4% per year and you're never going to run out of money. So there's debate, some people may say it's 5%, some people may say it's 3%, depending on how conservative they are. But that's the general idea. And it has proven to be pretty reliable over the last, 45 years or so. But that is, of course, doesn't take into account like real estate. If someone has a bunch of real estate properties and have income and they have hard assets, like that obviously counts too. But from a pure, just investment, like fairly low risk total market stocks are pretty good bet.
Yeah. So you never touch this, you just live off the interest basically. You never touch the full money. But yeah, I think depending on how far down the rabbit hole you go with kind of, the quantitative easing and money being printed and how much that money's going to be worth in like 20 years time, that could change the numbers a little bit. I think but yeah,
right.
That's probably a topic for another day, that one.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say my whole or my other podcast, there's a whole episode that we did on inflation. And the good part, if you are holding stocks, generally those are probably going to go up in value too. I mean,
Yeah.
those are companies. So even though your numbers may be off on the inflation standpoint, like you can bake those in to your assumptions, and generally like the 4% rule will get you pretty close. And for real numbers, so people understand, let's say your expenses are $40,000 a year, you would need to save $1 million. So 4% and multiplying by 25, those are inverses, just so people could visualize it. Let's say you have a big family and you want to go on big vacations or something, and your expenses are $100K a year, you need $2.5 million. So it sounds like a lot of money, but if you're as old as Mark and I, then and you invested in your 401k when you were, in your early 20s, it's kind of doable. It's doable to save that much money. It's not that crazy if you're putting in, 10, 15K per year, compounding over the last, 20, 25 years. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk about how these content websites are potentially a great path. And we're going to divide this up sort of into stages. So we'll think about people that have a full-time job and they're just getting into side hustling, and then maybe maturing and in the intermediate phase, and then finally where, you're doing it full time. So I'll turn it over to you, Mark, for sort of the side hustle piece, and I will buy you a little time. I mean, I just found smart passive income about 8 years ago and then got obsessed. And then I just started building sites. I didn't know what I was doing at all and made all sorts of dumb mistakes like over and over again before I kind of got my footing. Now, you were doing SEO for a while, so you had probably some pretty high level skills before you got into it. But can you tell us how, someone may start dabbling in this when they have a full-time job?
Yeah, I think there's so many good things about this business model, and like one of them is that it's effectively really cheap to get started, and if you're time rich, then you can work a blog on the side. All you've got to do is really pay for the hosting. You can knock up a website with a theme pretty easily, and so as part of a side hustle, if you've got time on the weekends or in the evenings to be able to do that, you could kind of just start writing your own blogs and kind of, you want to make sure you get the keyword research right, of course, but once you've kind of mastered that, then you got time to write the content. So you could do that in your own time. And once the site, starts generating some income, then maybe you want to kind of look to kind of outsource some of like that writing too, kind of maybe accelerate like the growth. If you've got like a goal to build a portfolio or build a site that's going to make you money, then there's no quick way around it. You just need a lot of content, at least in the outset. You might need to think about links further down the road. The more content you can kind of generate and get out the door, like the quicker you're going to get to a point where you're earning, a decent income from a website. So, and you're just one person that may be working full time doing a side hustle. So, but if you're more cash rich than time rich, then you can kind of go straight into the paying for a service to kind of get a site built for you. But there's that middle ground as well. Once you start writing, well, maybe you start earning $200 or $300 a month, but that can supplement you outsourcing some writing. And doesn't mean you stop writing. If you want to double up and just keep writing as well, then you can do that. So I think in terms of like starting out, I think gain as much knowledge as you can. Like you said, you started off with smart passive income. Obviously, Pat covers like a wide variety of kind of topics these days, but he was kind of back then. He was kind of very focused in website investing kind of space, or more focused in that kind of space, I would say. Yeah, but then I kind of came across you and Spencer and a bunch of other people that are kind of doing it in the space and kind of thinking, yeah, this is something that's not just one person's talking about. It's kind of real. And but yeah, I think that's one way that you can start from like a side hustle. You got to decide how much time. If you've got kids, I love kids. Like I have 3 at a young age. I don't have so much time. But there's a bunch of ways you can kind of get started, I guess.
You mentioned publishing a lot of content. So for someone who's, say, in the first year, do you have like a specific target kind of a guideline that someone can follow and probably do okay?
I would sort of flip it like slightly the other way. So I would say you've got to try and get as many out as you can, right? You want to be doing as many articles as you can. If you can do one every evening, then you're going to get, in a year, you're going to be in good shape. If you can get 365 articles per hour, for example, maybe take a bit of time off. But if you can do that, wow, that's going to set you up really well. Like, what I would say is you just don't want to move too slow. Like I think you're moving too. If you're looking at doing one article a month, you're moving too slow. Like you're gonna give up way before your site starts earning any money. 12 articles a year or whatever, it's going to take years. And those articles are going to age. They're going to need rewriting and updating before you start earning any money. So, I mean, if you one a week, I think maybe then you'll get to like 50 or so in a year. That's a healthy-ish kind of start, but I would at least try and get a couple of weeks out, so you've got like maybe 100 over the course of a year, and that'll give you a healthy start.
I want to give a quick thanks to the other sponsor of the show, which is me. I bring you this show every week, twice a week, sometimes 3 times, and it is pretty fun. I enjoy the hell out of it, and it's a blast to chat with people like Mark or Adam, who I'll talk to in a few weeks here, or Christy or Ariel, or all these success stories are super cool, and it's a blast for me to check them out. And I appreciate you listening and watching these shows over on the YouTube side. And if you want to check out my other podcast, it's called HiFi, personal finance and financial independence. We talk about some, random topics as well, but really it's just my buddy and I hanging out down here in the basement and chatting, trying to make each other laugh. Sometimes we have some more serious conversations. Like recently we talked about inflation. We brought a guest on who did some research, and she's much smarter than us in that area, and probably many others as well. Paula Pant helped us out on that. And then more recently, we just did an episode on like healthcare and how to think about healthcare, at least here in the US, when you are potentially going away from a W-2 job and you have to figure out how to get insurance without an employer, which is a little more complicated here in the US. So anyway, thanks for checking out these episodes, these shows. I appreciate it very, very much. And let's get back to the episode. I think you should publish as much as you possibly can, whatever the limiting factor is, money, if you can't outsource enough, just publish as much as you can. However, as a counterpoint, and so people don't just say, well, I can't, I don't have a lot of skill writing, I'm slow, and I don't have enough money to invest, I will tell you, go at your own speed. You'll still learn. And even if you could only write 1 article per month, let's zoom out and think about where you might be in 4 years. So at that point, there is more content. Still, you're not dealing with a large number, but things could change, right? You could start getting a little traction. You maybe get a different job and you're able to earn a little bit more, and then you could invest more. So things could change. So I don't want people to be discouraged if you're like, I don't have much money and I can't publish much and so on. You will need to speed that up a little bit, but it's not the worst thing in the world. You should still make slow progress moving forward. But if you could publish 1,000 articles in a year, do that. If you could do 2,000, publish 2,000, as much as you could do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And as far as growing, is there anything specific that people need to think about other than publishing more content and maybe getting more backlinks and stuff like that? What other pieces?
Yeah. So in terms of growing the site, I guess there's a number of different things I guess you need to think about at this point. So if we're talking about a growing phase, so we're assuming you've already kind of got a bunch of articles, you've got some traffic in there. Of course, you want to continue to kind of start growing growing the site by writing more articles. I'm sort of the mind that you want to be creating as much content as possible before you even start looking at links. Links should be at a point where, okay, I've kind of found, or I've maximized all of my low hanging fruit that I can probably achieve with the authority of site I've got. Now I need to get some more authority and I need to build some links. So at some point you kind of want to build links, but I always say just go hard on content first. You don't want to get just 5 or 10 pieces of content and then start building links. Like, you're only going to ever get so much traffic to 5 or 10 articles. Like, you want to have a decent base of content before you start looking down that road. So there's that. And then there's looking at optimizing the pages that you've already got. So once you've got articles that are ranking or keywords that are ranking, you can start using tools to look at, okay, where am I ranking for specific keywords or specific pages on the bottom of page 1, top of page 2? Like, what can I do for some small optimizations, small changes to kind of push me up to the top of page 1, which is kind of that's where I'm going to get all the traffic increases from. So I think there's a case to be had for that. Do you have any other things in mind for that growing phase?
I think one of the areas that people mess up on is thinking that they want a portfolio. So
yeah.
What happens often, and actually beginners fuck this up a lot too, because they hear maybe you, Mark, or maybe John at Fat Stacks, and people have 8 or 10 sites. Shauna over at Skip Blast, I chatted with her the other day. She has like 28 sites or something, right? So people are hearing about folks that are 10 years ahead of them. And they're thinking, all right, well, if this person's making $80K a month and they have 10 sites, I need 10 sites. But if you look back at someone's history, it's like they worked on one site really hard for like 3 or 4 years. And then they started the second one. Or maybe they started the second one after a year, but they didn't touch it and they just kept focusing. And the fact is, like, no matter what you're working on, if you're working on multiple projects, you're going to be spreading your attention. There's more decisions to make. And I know people are like, well, I have this other site and, it's not much. I just have to like log in there, once a week to draft the post. And then, I also have to update the plugins and, wait a second, the hosting. And then all of a sudden, again, you have all these decisions and the admin, it takes a toll on your brain. And it stresses me out. Right. It stresses me out personally, but people don't realize, and they're like, well, it's just a little bit here and a little bit there. And the most successful people I know, they don't fuck around with like a big portfolio, or if they do, it's 10 or 12 years in. So any thoughts on that? You see that mistake pretty often?
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. If you're trying to create one article for each, again, you're just never going to get that. So yeah, I totally agree. You need to go deep in one. Like the one counter I would say to that is, particularly if you've got money to invest, you're more cash rich than time rich. Then the thing with building sites is that not all of them take off as well as each other. Not all of them take off as fast as each other. So going one, it's kind of eggs all in one basket. It's going to go as fast as it goes. It'll get there in the end for sure. But, we've definitely had scenarios where we've had clients that work on, that have come to us and we've bought multiple sites out from them at the same time because they do have this portfolio idea, but they just want to get there faster and they've got the investment to do it. But what tends to happen then, and this kind of happens the way that I do things as well, which I'll go into, I guess, but what you'll find is that you'll clearly spot a winner or two winners out of those sites that you build, and you go, right, now I'm just going to go all in on those. Forget those other ones for a while, let them age a bit longer. Maybe they'll start to show some fruit. But like, these ones are clearly the winners, and these are the ones I should invest in. And so the counter to that is like, you get to put more horses into the race and then choose the winners. And for me, quite often I do something very similar to that, where I will just put like 30, 40 posts on a few sites and let them age and let them see what happens, and then pick up again at a later date the ones that are like really showing signs of doing well. Because sure, you can struggle through and kind of get there in the end with any of the sites, but if you can get there a whole lot faster with one or two of them, then why wouldn't you pick that route? So,
how long, in that scenario where you have a few sites aging, let's assume they're all like kind of the same age or so, although maybe it doesn't matter for this question. What I'm getting at is, how long should it take to, say, start getting some impressions on the Google Search Console, how long to get some actual traffic and to earn money. Maybe set us up a timeline from, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, something so people have an idea what to expect.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it depends whether you're starting from a fresh domain or an age domain, which we can kind of cover as well separately. But if you're working with a fresh domain, it kind of doesn't matter if you are kind of working slowly with a fresh domain, because it's going to take a while. It's just the most common reason for people failing is that they give up too soon. And what you got to understand is that it's going to, from a fresh domain, you're going to invest in time into essentially what feels like a black hole and looking like you're getting no results for quite a long period of time. And that could be at least 5 months and easily looking up to like 12 months before. And what you'll see is you look in the future, you look at your graph and you just see like no change, and like barely anything. Well, it looks like nothing, but at the time it's like 20 extra visitors that month compared to the last month in the first few months. And again, it depends how much content you're building. But eventually, like you kind of see it take off. And it's normally 5 months or so is the earliest, but generally you've done some other work in building a couple of links or creating a lot of content. I definitely see more and more taking 9 to 12 months these days on like fresh domains before you start to genuinely see any traction. But it's quite a nice feeling when you have, I guess, I trust the process now. So I go big on a site. Like generally, if I've got an idea, I will put a couple of 100 posts on it, not just a few, and without any feedback to say that it's good. Like I just trust that it's going to be good, and then you kind of see the hockey stick, and that's like there's nothing more satisfying than seeing it, all your work kind of take off. But so with an age domain, which we can cover in more details at some point if you'd like, but I mean, that's completely different. For people who don't know what an age domain is, it's a domain that already had a business. It was already existed as a website in the past, as a business or as another niche site, maybe another blog. But it's already been indexed by Google in the past. Like Google's seen this domain. It's got backlinks on it, which is a good age domain should have a good backlink profile, which is already given you authority on given that domain authority. So what that means is that when you start, you haven't got to go through that period where Google needs to trust this site before it's going to start giving it any traffic. It can pick up kind of where it left off in some circumstances. And that's more likely to happen if it's been more recently dropped and it's still, a lot of pages are still indexed. You'll generally see that site will take off quicker, but it doesn't we've seen even sites that are domains that haven't been used for years do the same, and vice versa. Ones that have been dropped recently, they still take slower to take off. But generally, like it's more weighted in that way. But and that can take that can be anything from like a week where you start seeing some, if you part on. There's tactics around recreating some of the pages or that used to exist on the site that used to get traffic that already have backlinks. If you recreate those, quite often, if they're already getting a lot of traffic, that can bump you straight back up and you can start seeing traffic real quick. So, but again, even those domains, I would say that the time period is less. Normally you're looking at 5 or 6 months as kind of the longer, this is the time you kind of have to wait before you start seeing stuff with an age domain generally. Some a little bit longer, but ultimately you're playing that waiting game. But at the end of the road, you've still got a domain that's got some backlinks and some authority to work with. So even if it does take longer, you still arrive at a point where you've got a more authoritative site that you can go after more keywords, and potentially you've got more chance of success with ranking for any keywords within the niche you're in.
And I'll just repeat to make sure I generally have it for like a brand new domain. You're looking at 5 or 6 months before you start getting, some appreciable amount of traffic. And at the longer end, it could be 9 to 12 months, just a much longer sandbox. And then for age domains, you potentially could skip the sandbox altogether and start getting traffic within weeks, it sounds like. Definitely. And then if it's a little bit slower, it could be up to 6 months before you start seeing like a lot more traffic. But one can assume it's roughly halving the sandbox period, approximately.
Yeah, kind of broadly. Like I say, it could be way quicker, but broadly, I mean, I think if you use that as a rule of thumb, I think then you won't be too disappointed.
And what risks do you have with using an age domain? I mean, sometimes does it not work out? Have you heard that scenario?
Yeah, I think the risk. I mean, okay, so to cover like some of the risks are you got to check the history of the domain to make sure that it hasn't been used for purposes that you wouldn't want it to be used for in the past. So you wouldn't want it to have been used as a spam site, as a PBN, as a site that's like a porn site or a payday loan site. You don't want it to have changed its relevance over time. So it might have started out as a golf site and became a dog site, and then became a podcast site, and then became something else. So like you want to make sure there was consistency in its history. The best ones are ones that have had kind of one past. It was a genuine business with genuine backlinks for whatever reason. If you can find some with some great like news sites, like the New York Times or the BBC as well, like all the better. That's going to improve the authority of that domain and the trust that Google has in it. But yeah, there's definitely like some to take off. But I would just say that it's just like way less. Like more often than not, you will like it's successful. I guess the worst case scenario is that it almost just behaves like as if it was a fresh domain. Like you almost feel like you didn't get any. Okay, as long as you've done the right due diligence and like it is a healthy domain, right? Then the worst case scenario is it just doesn't behave like. What I would say from like working on loads and loads and loads of domains, like we've worked with lots for our customers now, is that you'll see the benefits far outweigh the risks. And especially if where I was talking about you're having those many horses in the race and one will take off. When an age domain site takes off, it really takes off. Like there's the difference between a fresh domain taking off, you might see, okay, well that's done quite well. An age domain taking off, it can be like incredible. Like it can really change. It can change your life,
right?
And it's not uncommon. Like it's not a ridiculously low percentage. Maybe that I'm not talking about like 1 in 1,000 where you get like a real massive chance of success. It's reasonably good. So if you're building out on multiple domains, then multiple age domains, then the chances of having one take off it just increases, and of having like runaway kind of results is a lot higher, and that's kind of what we found.
And and I think there was a case study that either you or Adam told me about, where essentially it was a pretty good age domain, and the person was very aggressive. And I mean, I think we're basically going to do this for my site coming up, where we're just going to publish a huge amount of content. The domain that you and I are going to work on, which I guess we're sort of launching it and talking about it for the first time here, we're going to publish a few hundred articles in, a quarter, pretty quick. And we're going to essentially double the content. So it should be pretty interesting. And the domain that we're going to be working with is, it's better than an age domain. It's a few years old. There's traffic. It's just a site that's getting traffic and growing, and has, good backlinks. And it's, like I said, it's been growing. So there's no reason that it shouldn't work well. And I expect the best age domains would probably behave the same as like what's going to happen when we publish a lot of content on my site. So interesting. Okay. Any other thoughts on the age domain piece here?
The only thing I'd say is that if I think age domains, they're going to cost you a couple of $1,000s, for something that's decent. Like, and you might kind of like gasp at that and think, "Oh my God, like that's just like such a lot of money." But and maybe it is if you haven't got that kind of money like lying around, and maybe you want to start with a fresh domain. But it's almost like a false economy if you do have the budget to think I'm just saving money, because it's a really, really cheap way of purchasing a backlink profile. If you can get a site that's got 100, 200 referring domains, for example, and you've got some news sites which are almost going to be impossible to achieve, like maybe the BBC or New York Times, like for you to be able to achieve that yourself, like it's probably unlikely to get those links. But also, it's just the time or the money. If you pay us or someone else to like get you those links, it's going to cost you way more than a couple of $1,000s to to get that. So I think age domains are like massively undervalued. Like at the moment, you pay a couple of $1,000s, but I think they should be worth way more. And I think the market is only going in one direction as more and more people are building them. There's more marketplaces like Odys popping up. Like it's going to get more competitive for everyone to acquire those domains in general, because there's only so many good SEO domains out there, and then more and more people are fighting for them. So the value is going to go up, and I think SEOs are going to realize the value more and more. So that's just one thing I'd say about that.
For sure. I agree 100%. And shout out to our sponsor, Odys, which I'll actually run an ad at that spot right there at 35 minutes. Beautiful. Thanks a lot to Odys for sponsoring this episode. They're the source for aged and premium domains with built-in SEO, and it'll help you get a head start on your website most likely. So the featured domain for today is lightbuckets.com. This is generally in the outdoor/recreation area, and it deals with telescopes. So this is a site that used to sell research-grade telescopes. Now, I'm not sure you'll be able to easily drop ship those or anything like that, but you can certainly have a review site on basically any kind of optics. So you could cover telescopes again, but you could also cover maybe like the software that you would use for some astrophotography, maybe some software for controlling the telescope and that sort of thing. But you also could cover some of the equipment that you might need, as well as any informational topics. Now, when we have a look over on Ahrefs, we can see it's a domain rating of 43 with 334 referring domains, and 171 of those are due follow. And it's pretty impressive to have the domain rating at 43, especially considering the last traffic that we can estimate here from Ahrefs was back in kind of the middle of 2017. So it's been a few years, yet it still retained a very high domain rating, which is pretty cool. So you could have a look at this domain over at Odys. And one thing I forgot to mention, it's 15 years old. So a lot of age on this baby. And you could have a look at some of the, older, what do you call it? The screen grabs, like over the years, you can see what it was like back in the day. So anyway, you could have a look over at Odys. That's odys.global. If you join using my affiliate link, you can get $100 in your account, and I would get a bonus if you happen to buy anything, which I appreciate. Not a bonus, but a commission. It's called a commission. All right, so thanks to Odys, and let's get back to the interview. Okay, let's shift gears into going full-time. So do you have any guidelines or suggestions for people for when they should go full-time? And I think sort of the spectrum that we're looking at here is if someone should make the leap before they have replacement income. Maybe they're making $500 a month and they need to make 5,000. Should they, could they approach it that way and say, I'm going to try to make this a full-time thing, or when to pull the trigger? So I'll throw it over to you, Mark.
Yeah, I think everyone's circumstances are different, and I think everyone's appetite to risk is different. So I think it can vary from person to person. So you've talked about that FU money as well. That makes it different as well. So if you've got money in the bank, if you can live for 12 months and you've got that money in the bank, then maybe that changes the perspective a little bit as well. What I would say is that if you've got 12 months to live though in the bank, but you need money to invest in building a site or whatever, that's probably not enough. Don't just have a year's worth of money, because it's we're playing the long game with these. But I treat building sites like a conveyor belt. I have always a few warming up. It's going to take me a year or two before they come to fruition. And then I have some that are making me money now. And then I have some that I try to sell off at the top to make big chunks of cash. But then I have the monthly incomes along the way. So, you've got to look 1-2 years down the road before you really start to earn some money. But the rewards are great. So what I would say is that you need to get to the point where maybe you're earning 2 if your appetite is more risky, maybe 3 times what you need on a monthly basis. So if you need $2,000 a month to live, then maybe that's 4 or 6,000. Maybe you should make them from sites, and that's just because. And I guess to add to that, it's like you don't want to be doing that all from one site. If you do it from one site, the chances that, like, if Google comes along and smacks your site down one day, then you go down to almost zero, then you've gone from 6,000 to zero, and now you haven't got enough money. So I would say, you want to make sure you have got maybe a few sites in the fire. Maybe, again, depending on your appetite for risk, but 2 sites will be okay. 3 sites, as long as they're in different niches. Maybe you've monetized them slightly differently in terms of they're not all Amazon, but who are always every couple of years putting the interest, the commission rates down. That's going to happen again. So I think that, and there's that mix, right? You've got some money in the bank, and then you've got so maybe if you've got some money in the bank, maybe you only need two times your income. And I guess if you've got 2 times your income, maybe you're saving some of that away each month as well. So if one does then go, you've built up your nest egg a little bit more, or your buffer a little bit more. So, but I think if you've got nothing else, you want to at least get to 2 to 3 times what you need monthly to feel comfortable and have that spread across 2 or 3 sites as well.
It's a really tough one to answer, and I was surprised at your answer, Mark. Actually, I know everyone's risk tolerance is different, but a lot of people are like, all right, once I hit the same level as what I'm making at the full-time job. Now, one thing I'll throw in there is you have to look at your whole risk profile. I was chatting with a friend, Paula, and she has a bunch of real estate. She has a bunch of rental properties, and she's actually paid for those outright. So she owns all the properties. So it's very, cash flow heavy, but she's not leveraged at all. And technically, from an investment standpoint, I mean, she could pull out 70% of the equity in that real estate and then buy a bunch more property, like essentially more than double the property that she has. But she's also an entrepreneur and runs an online business like us. And that's fairly risky to be an entrepreneur. She's growing a company and she is exposing her risk in the entrepreneurship area, not on the real estate. The whole point being, if let's say you're only making $500 a month and you need 5,000 per month, but your spouse or partner has a full-time job and insurance and can act as there's some boating term. What's the thing in a boat that keeps it stable? Do you know? There's a word for it. I don't know. It provides.
I don't know. The hull, or no.
The sailors out there.
Okay. No,
but imagine
you don't mean the rudder. You don't mean the rudder, right?
No, it's yeah. So any sailors out there, send us an email. I don't know what word I'm looking for. Essentially, if you have some other piece of your financial puzzle that can stabilize your situation, then maybe it's okay if you take a risk. And that is precisely what happened to me. When I got laid off in 2015, I think I was only making maybe $2,000 a month or so. I was making some money online, but not replacement income. But my wife did have a job, and through skillful negotiation, I was able to get her to let me try to build a business, which turned out great. The first year was, rocky ups and downs and that sort of thing. But her full-time job helped stabilize the situation. And by 9 months in, I could tell everything was going to be fine, and I was going to shoot past what I was earning before. No problem at all. So, understand your risk tolerance, maybe your spouse's risk tolerance, and understand the full profile. But Mark, from a conservative standpoint, I love what you said, earn 2 to 3 times what you potentially would need. And I think, I'll throw it back to you. I think it's because of the fact that one site could get hurt in rankings, and then what you were counting on for the last 12 months may be cut in half or something like that. Is that the reason why you're pretty conservative on that side?
Yeah. And I think one site will generally probably be earning the most of your income. So, it generally kind of just happens like that. You don't all nice and evenly spread themselves out, but so yeah, if your big one goes down, and maybe you want another couple to. But it's funny. Yours, like, so I'm a risk taker, right? And so and it surprised me that you came up with your thing, because I kind of view you more of a numbers man, a thinking man, and like, don't get me wrong. So I wouldn't go for what I just said, right? But I think it's better to be on the conservative side. I'm not going to tell people to go and take massive risks, but I would personally, and I've done it, is like I quit and move on and go all in on something before I've got enough money, right? So I'm like 50% in to like what I need. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to find a way. And actually, it really focuses the mind when you need to find that extra money. Like, you're pretty focused when you need it. I think a lot of people's mentality, and it was definitely mine, it's like, what really is the worst thing that's going to happen? Because I think people think they lose their job and the world is going to end. It's just going to be horrific. And actually, when you start thinking about it, I think it's only when you've done it and then you're an entrepreneur and you run your own business, you look back and you go, what was I worried about? Like, because I guess what you got to think about is like, well, okay, well, if I really did have no money tomorrow, like, what could I do? Like, would I cut back on what I spend? Do I have like even family, like a mum and dad, which would bail me out? Am I actually really going to lose my house in 2 months' time and be the guy on the street with the paper cup? Like, is that really going to happen? Or like, and I think it's really hard to look at it when you almost need to have done it before you can see back and look back retrospectively and say, actually, it was never that big a risk anyway. It just felt like it at the time. So it's easy saying it once you've been there, but like, I think if you can see through that, I think that's kind of helpful as well.
And I think, worst case scenario, when I was going through starting my business, it was, well, you can go and get a job again. Like, especially you and I had pretty marketable skills. I mean, we literally can probably still go get a job, except we have bad attitudes now because we've been working for ourselves for too long. But other than that, I mean, like, our resume would read okay. Someone might say, hey, what's this huge 8-year gap? And I could say, I built a business, sold it, did some other stuff, and yeah, I want to do consulting again, which that's a dumb sentence, like, altogether. But
worst case scenario, you have to get the job again. Like, you just have to go back to where you were. Like, it's not that much. It's not that scary, really.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mistakes. And like you said, you've worked with a lot of clients now, and you've coached and helped a lot of people along the way. What mistakes do you see beginners make specifically, or misconceptions they may have about the whole process?
Yeah, so I think, like you say, trying to spread themselves too thin is definitely one, and having multiple sites and not focusing their attentions all on one thing. I think we're constantly trying to set people's expectations for, like, this is the long game that we're playing here. Like, not like, it's, if you're planning on this earning you a monthly income in 3 months' time and you're starting from scratch, like, this is not for you. This is not going to happen. Like, you really have to, you just have to know that it's worth it when you get there, but it's going to take a while to get there. So I think that is a problem. And like, so giving up too soon is kind of definitely the most common thing. And I had another thing there, but I've kind of forgotten it off the top of my head. I'll let you go with some, and then I'll try and remember.
Well, all the ones that you mentioned, those are good. The other piece is jumping from one thing to another. So it's similar to the focus, but someone might start with affiliate marketing and then they get a little bored. They're like, well, I'm going to try drop shipping now. And then they run out of money to run ads, and that didn't work out. And then they're like, well, I'm going to try Kindle publishing. And then they think, maybe I'm going to be a freelancer now because I saw some Instagram or TikTok where a freelancer is doing great. So they just jump around and essentially just make beginner mistakes again and again. Maybe they, can pick up something that helps them along the way, but typically they're just constantly in that first 6-month period where they don't know what the hell they're doing. And as soon as they get bored, they jump to something else. And people say, I know people have ADHD and their ADD and all that stuff, but I I hate it, Mark, when people are like, yeah, I get bored and I want to start another thing. And it's like, fuck, like you haven't completed any of the things. You have like
Mm.
80% done pieces of project and you're saying you have ADD, but you just get bored. And again, people with ADHD, I'm sorry. I could focus really well, so I have low sympathy, I guess. And maybe
Yeah.
that's wrong. Do you have ADHD or anything? Am I offending you specifically?
No, no,
Okay,
no, no. I don't.
good.
Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
All right, yeah. And when actually I have a couple friends, I need to check with her, but I think she just started medication, and she's like, it's changing my life. It like I realized why I was having so many issues before. But the point is, sometimes people jump around too much. Sorry for the rant, everybody, on the ADHD thing. I know it's a real affliction, but if you can stick with something for a little while, it'll really help you out in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Did you think of yours?
No, I think it was. Yeah, no, I can't. I think it was something more specific to do with like not following the correct kind of strategy. But I can't remember like exactly what it was. So
That's all right. Well, let's move on to shortcuts. I know this is a question I told you, Mark. It's one that people will want me to ask, but I think it's a bit of a cop out. So it comes in different forms. Like, what are the top 3 things I need to worry about in the first year? What shortcuts can I take? But essentially, people are looking for the magic formula in bullet format. So do you have any tips that will almost ensure someone's success?
yeah, time machine maybe. Like, I think we're going to probably cover some of the things we've like mentioned, but in this context. So, like we mentioned, age domains can kind of get you there a bit quicker. Well, potentially a lot quicker, right? The guy that you were speaking about, like, his site's making $40,000 a month after a year. Okay, it was aggressive growth, but then he could afford to reinvest the money he was making from that site into that growth very quickly. So his site's like worth like what is it, 1.6 million like dollars now. Like that's in the year. Like I've got a site that I started a year ago, or after a year, it was doing 350,000 sessions a month. Like, and that's on an age domain, but a very modest one. Like a DR12 it was when I started it. So age domains could like definitely like get you there quicker. Not every time, and not every time very far as super fast acceleration, but they'll get you there faster. The other thing is that I still see it like even in probably a lot of people that we both know like jointly, like there's people that they've always done it themselves, and they will always do it themselves. So they've always written the content, and they're always going to continue to write the content, and they're always going to, and they'll never outsource kind of anything. But and that's totally fine if you want to do that. But you're trading time for you've only got so much time in the day, and then you're only going to go so far. So I think we mentioned like once you start earning a little bit of money from the site, you can reinvest that. You just make the asset bigger and bigger and bigger, and if you just keep putting it all back in, like it just gets bigger and bigger over time to the point where, then you can start just taking profit and be having this monster asset and building new sites with the money you're making from that site, and it can escalate much more quickly. So I think once you get the opportunity to be able to outsource some of that work to someone else to help you grow, will definitely kind of help you get there quicker. To that, that fuck you money or the financial freedom kind of road. There are other ways to get there quicker. Like there is no magic bullet. Like what it really comes down to. So, like if you want to gamble it a roulette, maybe, and put it on red or black, and maybe you get 50 chance or just under. But like that's that you'll get there super fast, but you might lose it all too. But
I'll throw in, those are great. The anti-shortcut, and I probably like stole this from Seth Godin or something, but the long way is the shortcut. So if you have a longer term vision and you're patient, you're probably going to end up in a better spot. And that sounds stupid. So I'll give an actionable piece here. Someone that I'm coaching, Christy, we followed her case study for the last year and some change. She did outreach. She did roundup posts on her site with people that were in social media, maybe Instagram or YouTube or something, and slowly built relationships. She slowly made sure these people knew who she was. And over time, it turned into backlinks, right? It turned into backlinks and opportunities. She actually signed a copywriting retainer with a company in her niche that is paying her something like 30 or 40,000 in this year. So it's like a $4,000 per month copywriting contract. That's on top of the 5 to 9,000 that she earns every month from affiliate marketing and ads. And she did not ask for any links initially. She just networked and worked within her industry. And most of the time, if I'm answering a question, people are like, how can I get links this month? And that's a very short-term vision. You don't even know if that link is going to do you any good. But instead, she was building relationships, and it turned into, dozens of backlinks from the best sites in her industry that her competitors can't get because they're not putting in the same time. And then, of course, the straight up money with the copywriting contract. So if you could just have a long-term vision, you'll probably shoot past people that are looking at shortcuts.
Absolutely. I think every site that I start, I try and think about what could it be as a business down the road. Like 99% of like people in our space stop at the monetizing with ads and affiliate, and they don't think about what kind of real business could it be? It might have a YouTube channel in the future. Might I have a course that I sell in the future, or for consultancy services. Might have a physical product, or even a physical storefront, like in the future. Like, how is it going to be a real business one day? And I think building those relationships are, you're thinking longer term then. But what I'd say also as well, if you do have the time and you are going to invest and you are thinking those many years down the road. Now, I think to some extent, at least, you can start thinking, reducing your that requirement to have multiple sites to lower your risk. Because if it's just what 99% of people do, which is just ads and affiliate, they're much more likely to be knocked down at something. But if you've got a genuine site where you've got genuine links and you're doing genuine things, one site probably could be enough, because it is as genuine and as authentic and as real as it gets. And it doesn't not say that it doesn't happen, but it's much less likely to happen that Google's going to get upset about what you're doing.
100%. All right. Well, any other broad thoughts about the sort of path that a person can start from side hustling to growing to going full time? And then, we talked about potentially some of the risks and quote shortcuts or long cuts, as I changed the answer in the question. So yeah, any other broad thoughts about this?
I don't think so. No, I think we kind of covered. I think we covered quite a lot there in that time. So no, I can't think of like any kind of overriding thought. I guess would be. I mean, it is just what it is. I mean, if you're starting out, then you want to try some things out first, and like make some mistakes, and don't maybe your first site isn't the site that you end up with, but like the other thing, I guess, where people fail is like not just that they give up too soon, is that they never start. Like they think about it, they go on for ages researching the niche. They've got to find the absolute niche, the killer niche, the niche that's gonna help them quit their job. And if you just and there's so many people I know that just never get started. They just procrastinate at that stage of like wanting to get started and never get started. Just get started. Like if you'll learn along the way.
It definitely favors people that take action. And I've seen, this is an interesting sort of concept, but I've seen people that I'm going to use harsh words in my description just to make the point. Like less intelligent people do really well because they're focused towards action. So they'll make bad mistakes. They'll not think about things. They won't think things through. And they make poor decisions occasionally, but they're favored towards action. And usually the mistakes are not catastrophic. They're just kind of a series of small mistakes or dumb decisions where an external person might think, why did you do that? That was kind of dumb. Some very smart people that I know are in the analysis phase for 2 years. It's procrastination. It's a form of perfectionism where someone will keep analyzing and they want to get more keywords. They want to make sure the keywords are right. They want to make sure the niche is profitable. They're checking and researching for way too long, and they are very smart and they're trying to get as much data as possible. But just because they have more data doesn't mean they're going to be successful, and they're just not taking action. So it's very interesting. And I see you nodding, Mark. I mean, you've seen this too, right? Some people are in analysis phase forever.
Oh, I think absolutely the people that are most successful, probably in business and in entrepreneurship, but even definitely in the website investing space, are not the best SEOs. The people that are like most successful, the best SEOs aren't generally the ones that are successful. It's definitely that way around. Like the people that are most successful definitely aren't the best SEOs. I'll just leave it at that. But like they're the ones that are taking action. Action by far trumps kind of knowledge. And actually, the other great thing about this business model is like it's not. You can go deep and really analytical, and you can kind of try and work on the latest. Like strategy and go deep on like that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, content and links, good keyword research, of course, but content and links, get that done and you're going to find some sort of success. You don't have to be some kind of guru, of SEO guru. Like it just take action. Like you say, I think that is more important than anything.
Perfect to end on that. Mark, where can people find you?
They can find us over at nichewebsite.builders is the website where the business is. We also, if you go up, there's a podcast that we have. If you go into the menu, there's a podcast menu. We've got a YouTube, there's a podcast and YouTube channel similar to this, the Doug.Show, Doug. And we've got a couple of Facebook groups as well. So Niche Website Flippers, which we generally use for people buying and selling sites. It's like an open marketplace there. And then we have Niche Website Builders, which is kind of more for talking shop about building and investing in websites. Those are probably the best places right now.
Awesome. We'll link up for everything so people can get to it. And we'll talk again soon. Mark, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Doug. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for checking out this episode, and be sure to check out Mark's agencies, Niche Website Builders, and they came back on as a sponsor for the live streams and for the podcast. So we're actually starting to work on a new project together, kind of a case study. And this is built on top of a site that I created, and they actually did most of the work. I outsourced most of the work in the first year to them. I did a little bit on my own, hiring some of my own writers, but after some time, it's actually getting a pretty significant amount of traffic, and we're going to do a lot of work on it in kind of a short time. So I'll probably talk about it, I will definitely talk about it more coming up. So keep an eye out for that episode where I explain where we're starting from, the foundation that we're starting from, and what we're planning on doing. And then we'll track it along the way. So it'll be a fun collaboration between me and the team over at Niche Website Builders. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you some exciting information. Now, one thing that I could tell you about is we're going to approach all informational content. So after talking to several people in the last year, especially Charlie, he was just on an episode, and he has been on several episodes, and just some of the conversations that we've had off the record as well, it makes me think like, oh man, I kind of want to try it out and just publish this informational content. It'll be interesting. It'll be fun. There is the niche that we're going to be working in. So, and I'll probably give some analogies in the future, but the niche that we're working in, it seemingly has endless keywords, or at least more than I would be able to get to. So without trying too hard, I could probably come up with 10,000 keywords or so, and they would be, roughly formulaic. I could potentially outsource it in a very easy way and have someone else do the keyword research. And it is, much like Charlie, it is not as important to have a lot of search volume. It's more important that someone is kind of searching for it somewhere, and there's some, research that we can do to validate that. But like Charlie, I'm at a point where I can recognize that these are probably viable keywords, even though it may not get a huge amount of traffic. It will get some traffic over time. The cool part is almost certainly some of these very low search volume or zero search volume keywords, if one were to check, you will end up with an anomaly where some of these are going to get way more traffic than you expect. It could be a trending topic. It could be something like that. Or it could just be a lot of people are searching for similar terms, long tails of the primary keyword which we're targeting. But generally, it's going to be, very low competition, very low search volume, informational, and the niche that we're going to be operating in, we're not going to run out of keywords. So I'm excited, and hopefully we'll be able to publish the episode pretty soon where I lay out exactly what we're working on. And then I will most likely have updates, I would say once a month, maybe a little bit more frequent, but they're going to be, kind of quick updates, kind of like what Alex at WP Eagle will do. He has his scheduled updates, but occasionally if something interesting is going on, he'll provide an update, a little shorter one. Sometimes it's a, man on the street kind of thing. He's walking around, which is cool. I'm starting to ramble now, so I'm going to go ahead and finish it up here, but definitely check out sponsors of the show, check out the other podcast, and I will catch you on the next episode.